Hey there, my people, and welcome back to the channel and a new episode of my favorite back-in-the-day classic TV program, The Twilight Zone. Hang around to the end, peeps. I've got a treat for you, and you don't want to miss it. Now, I submit for your perusal one of my favorite Twilight episodes titled The Shelter. Dr. Bill Stockton, a respected physician, has built a fallout shelter in his basement. Then news of an imminent nuclear attack breaks out, throwing the whole neighborhood into a tizzy. So join us as we delve into the depths of human nature, where fear and desperation collide with morality and self-preservation. The Shelter offers a stark reflection of the fragility of society, igniting a visceral exploration of the primal instincts that surface in the face of imminent doom. Join us, my peeps, as we enter the Twilight Zone. The scene opens with a surprise celebration going on at Dr. Bill Stockton's house. His wife, Grace, his 12-year-old son, Paulie, and his close neighborhood friends are all there. They're having dinner and eating cake, and they're making embarrassing toasts to him. And Bill, he takes it good-naturedly, but he's not the surprise celebration kind of guy. But they're neighborhood friends, and that's what neighborhood friends do. They hang out with each other. They do barbecues on the weekends and spend the holidays with each other, and they raise their kids together. This is that type of neighborhood. Well, on this particular day, the celebration is interrupted by a civil defense announcement.
4 minutes ago, the president issued the following statement. At 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, both our distant early warning line and ballistics early warning line detected radar evidence of unidentified flying objects heading southeast. The nature of these objects remains undetermined. In the interest of national safety, we are initiating a state of yellow alert. Civil defense authorities urge those with prepared shelters to proceed there immediately. For those without, prioritize gathering supplies of food, water, and medicine to a central location.
Needless to say, everybody at the party takes off. They are running home to prepare for this terrifying unknown. After the others have left, Bill, his wife Grace, and his son Paulie, they're running around getting together all the things they're going to need. You see, they've got a fallout shelter that's stocked with food, and they're rushing around getting other provisions, additional canned goods. They're running tap water into jugs that they can take into the fallout shelter with them. Dr. Bill tells his son to get his medical bag, get books, get anything they think they might need because they don't know how long they're going to be in this shelter. What they do know is that they've already stockpiled 2 weeks of food in the shelter. So they're rushing around as quickly as they can, adding to that. Bill tells Grace that they could have anywhere from 15 minutes to half an hour to get everything they need into that fallout shelter, then get in there themselves and lock the door. At some point, the tap water shuts off. There's no more water coming through, and this escalates everybody's fear. Bill and Grace, they're talking about bombs going off while Paulie isn't down there with them. Grace is afraid, reasonably so. She says they're only 40 miles away from New York, and she knows New York is going to get hit in this. She's afraid of radiation. She's afraid of the poison that could be let loose. Bill tells her that they've got this shelter, and with that door shut and it locked tight, they have enough. Bill feels they have everything they're going to need. And he even tells her that the reserves might last even longer if they're wise in using it. But Grace says, then what, Bill? Then what are we going to do? Crawl out of here like gophers coming out of the ground and tiptoe through all the rubble up above, the rubble and the ruin and the bodies of all of our friends? And she questions, why is it even necessary to survive? What's the good of it? Wouldn't it just be better, I guess she's saying, to get taken out in the first round? But this is what Bill says. Paulie, he's the reason why we have to survive, because their son Paulie is only 12 years old. And Bill tells her, this is our reason. He may only inherit rubble now, but being a 12-year-old kid, I guess what Bill is trying to tell his wife is that the world can rebuild itself again. And that is reason enough to survive. So Bill goes on to bring the rest of the filled jugs of water down to the fallout shelter. He was in the process of doing that when there was a knock at the door, and he turns and he sees that it's Jerry. Jerry is there to ask if he and his family can come and get in their fallout shelter. They have a basement, but not a shelter of their own. And Bill is saying to him, dude, our shelter is only big enough for 3 people, not anything more than that. And Jerry wants to bring his wife and his 3 kids over and get into their shelter. And Bill is saying, again, there's no room. While Jerry is saying, we're sitting ducks over here. We have no protection at all. Bill tells them, you know what? You guys can come and get in our basement if you want to, but I cannot let you into the shelter. I don't have room. And there's not nearly enough supplies for additional people. Again, he's saying this whole setup has been designed for 3 people. 3 people alone. And Jerry says, well, don't worry. We'll bring our own food and water. We'll sleep standing up. Bill, you've got to help us. You've got to help me keep my family alive. We won't use any of your stuff. And Bill looks at him and said, well, what about the air? He says, dude, this is a 10 by 10 room, Jerry. There's an air filter designed for 3 people. Are you going to come bring your own air? And he is begging and begging. Give us 48 hours, Bill, then we'll get out. And Bill is going, dude, when I shut and lock that door's not getting open. There'll be radiation and heaven knows what else out here. Look, Jerry, look, my man, look, bro, look, my brother. I'm sorry. I built this for my family. And then Jerry going, well, what about my family? Dude, come on. He going, well, what about my family? What are we supposed to do? Just sit in rocking chairs and sit on the front porch, rocking away while we burn to a crisp? And Bill said, look, brother man, dude, homie, that's not my concern. You want to know something? What's my concern is my family. I have to worry about Grace and Paulie. And then you got Jerry saying, well, what am I supposed to do? Just stand by and watch my wife and my children die in agony? And he's saying, Bill, I'm not doing that. Okay. People, I'm trying not to take any sides. Okay, I'm trying to be neutral, like Switzerland. But you didn't prepare at all. You didn't even fortify your basement. While this guy was putting in this fallout shelter, at the very least, you could have fortified your basement, right? You didn't bring nary a can of beans into your basement for the potentiality of this occurring and you having to feed your wife and kids. And now you running down to your neighbor, expecting your neighbor to be the savior of us all. You know what? I'm not taking sides, but I'm just trying to say what sounds reasonable to me and what don't sound reasonable to me. Just saying, peeps. And then Bill says this to him. I kept telling you, and I kept telling you, Jerry, and I kept telling all of you guys, get ready, build a fallout shelter. Forget about the card parties and the barbecues for maybe a few hours a week. Forget about them and make the admission to yourself that we are living in times where something messed up can jump off. But did you want to listen to me, Jerry? This is what Bill is saying. No, you didn't. None of you wanted to listen to me. And I kept saying, build a shelter, build a shelter, build a shelter. So now you got to face something far worse, Jerry. It's out of my hands. It's simply out of my hands. And Bill turns around, heads for the basement with his jugs of water, heading to hunker down and hunker in with his family. Now the next neighbor that shows up is Marty. He has his wife, his son, and a little baby in tow. He talks to Jerry, who tells him, hey look, Bill and his family are in the fallout shelter. They've shut the door and they're not letting anybody in. Marty's not having it. He pushes past Jerry and rushes over to the door. He's banging on the door, pleading with Bill to open up the door and let him in. He tells Bill, I've got my family with me. I've got my wife. I've got the kids. Please let us in. From inside the fallout shelter, Bill is saying, I can't. I'm sorry, but I can't do it. I won't do it. And he's saying all of this not because he's a mean guy, not because he's a bad guy. He's saying all of this because he is trying to save his family.
I feel sorry for you then, Bill. I really do. You probably will survive, but you'll have blood on your hands. You're a doctor! You're supposed to help people!
Okay, peeps, here's the problem I have with this one scene. This guy is banging on the door, telling Bill he's a doctor, he's got this Hippocratic oath, his role and purpose is to help people. Yeah, to a great degree, I agree with that, but his role and purpose is not to take care of your responsibility with your family. You the man and the head of your household. You are responsible for providing for your wife and your kids, not expecting your neighbor to do all the heavy lifting and all the out of pocket, and then you just come on over and get in the shelter. Again, I'm trying so hard to be neutral, but it is nearly impossible with the way these people think. And you know what? I know they're hysterical. I know they're not thinking right. I know they're trying to do and say anything they can do or say to get Bill to open up that door. But come on, y'all. That's not reasonable. And I question what would be their attitude and behavior if the shoe was on their feet. If they only had food in reserves for their children and their wife, would they be so eager to throw open the door and invite everybody in? People, I'm thinking not. And so now, all of the folks that were at Bill's house earlier for the celebration, now they're all turning up with their little kids in tow to get into the shelter. Jerry's upstairs and he's saying to them, you know what, all of you guys, this is not going to work. I have talked to Bill. He's not letting anybody in. What can we do? What can we do? Now, this is this whole group of folk who are now in the living room, including Marty, who's now upstairs. And they're talking about this and discussing this as if their input or their mindset matters to Bill or anybody else. Jerry is saying, look, he's downstairs locked in and he's not opening the door. Now people are mad. On the one hand, somebody is saying, you know what, we need to pick a basement, we need to pull all of our stuff. But then on the other hand, you have somebody else saying, you know what, this isn't fair. He's perfectly safe in his shelter while our kids have to sit around and wait for bombs to drop. We all need to go down there and we need to break down that door. Then you've got Marty saying, why don't we pick out one family? How about we draw lots? Jerry is saying, I'm telling you guys, he's not going to let anybody in. They're arguing back and forth, back and forth. We need to get in there. We need to save our kids. Again, somebody is saying we need to draw lots. Then you've got a guy saying, well, what do you mean by that, Marty? You think you get to go down there? And he's saying, well, why not? I have a 3-month-old baby. And the other guy is saying, is your baby any more precious than one of my kids? And then Marty says, I never said that. And then they start arguing. Jerry tries to jump in the middle of them. And this guy, he says some toe-up stuff to Marty. They are going at it.
That's the way it is when the foreigners come over here. Pushy, grabby, semi-American.
And so, now peeps, it's on like Donkey Kong. They are insulting each other, going back and forth. One's calling one a name, another one is calling another one the name. They go for each other. Jerry literally has to jump in the middle to keep a fight from breaking out. One of them says, let's go down to the shelter. Ask him again, please, please. And Marty said, you know what, I already been down there. I already asked him and he said no. They decide to go down there en masse once more. They go down there, they start yelling through the door, Bill, you got a bunch of your neighbors out here who want to stay alive. Now, you can either open up this door and talk to us, and we all figure something out, how many can come in there. Or you can just keep doing what you're doing, and we will bust our way into there. Bill, can you hear us? Can you hear us? Bill says nothing. One of the guys says, hey, fill up the street. Has some heavy piping in his basement. What we can do is we can run, go get the pipe, use it as a battering ram and battery and we can batter ram ourselves into the room. Okay, this is what happened to rational minds when they lose it. This is what happened when you get a mob of people together and one of them is talking off and then another one picks up the baton, they start talking off, and then you have a whole room full of people and nary one rational mind between them. You gonna take a battering ram and bust your way in, really? Okay, all right.
You're acting like a mob, and a mob doesn't have any brains. You're proving it by what you're doing.
Though Jerry was still trying to be the voice of reason, reason had left the building. And these guys had their minds made up as to what they were going to do. And they were going to stick to that. Just as they've breached the door, there's an emergency alert message.
Attention, attention. Remain tuned in for an important message. The President of the United States has just announced that the previously unidentified objects have now been definitely ascertained as being satellites. We are in no danger. Repeat, there is no enemy attack.
Well, the perceived threat is over, and now the group is faced with something else. They are now faced with how they treated one another all this long night. And where do you go from here?
Marty, I went off my rocker. You can understand that, can't you? I just went off my rocker. I didn't mean any of those things I said to you.
And so you have Jerry, again, trying to be diplomatic, says to Frank, I don't think Marty's going to hold it against you. Just like I don't think Bill is going to hold all of this against us. It seemed like, oh yeah, right. There is Bill, his wife, and his kid that we haven't seen them quite yet. I can appreciate Jerry's position, but you told this man's door off, and he hasn't even gone upstairs to see the havoc you wrecked in his living room area.
We'll pay for the damages, Bill. We'll take up a collection right away.
We could have a block party tomorrow night, or a big celebration.
This guy looks like he's been taken through the ringer, and he has. Truth be told, Bill has been terrorized, in fear for his life and the safety of himself, his wife, and his child, and not against a boogeyman, not even against some type of nuclear explosion, but terrorized by the very people he lived with, his neighbors, his best friends, his village, if you will. And what are they talking about? Having a block party, having a big celebration, anything to get back to normal. And I think that was a very, very key statement made by Frank. Anything to get back to normal. Really? After every single thing that happened tonight, you people turning on one another like a pack of rabid dogs, and you think you can get back to normal. You dog each other out. You call each other names. You probably call each other's mama some names. But you think you can get back to normal. Bill has his own feelings. And his feelings are, I don't know. I don't know if we can get back to normal. I don't even know what normal is. I thought I once did, but not anymore. And they're saying to him, look, we told you, Bill will pay for the damage. All the damage.
I told you we'd pay for the damages, Bill.
Damages? I wonder if any one of us has any idea what those damages really are.
And you want to know what Bill's response to Frank was? After Frank said, I told you, Bill, we'd pay for the damages. And Bill said, damages? I wonder if any one of us has any idea what those damages really are. Maybe one of them is finding out what we're really like when we're normal. The kind of people we are just underneath the skin. And I mean all of us. A lot of wild animals who put such a price on staying alive that they clawed their neighbors to death just for the privilege. Bill goes on to say this, we were spared a bomb tonight, but I wonder if we weren't destroyed even without knowing it. Wow. And here is Rod Serling's parting comment with regard to this episode.
No message, no prophetic tract, just a simple statement of fact. For civilization to survive, the human race has to remain civilized.
Well, there you have it, my people. I love the fact that Rod left this story open-ended. There was no attack, and while they may have survived some war, they likely did not survive the night. I believe they wrought harm among themselves that cannot so easily be forgotten. What would I have done if I was Bill, and my spouse or partner, and my child was in a bunker that only had room and water and food and provision and air for just the three of us. And all my lifelong friends were on the outside beating on the door. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't think these questions are necessarily so easy to answer. I believe that you have to wrestle, perhaps, with yourself. You know, you may ask yourself, well, maybe this won't last long. Maybe if I open the door and let one or two or a handful or all of them in. Again, I think these are the challenges of life that you wrestle with. Rod Serling, he wrestled with this. I promised you all a treat, and this is it. Rod did a radio interview on this very episode, and he discussed how he felt concerning the ending. Here it is.
We've been talking, my wife and me, about the possibility of building a shelter.
Peeps, this was a real thing back in the early to mid-60s.
We were struck with the moral and ethical problem of what would happen if we got into our shelter happily, and neighbors with children came to the door and said, please let us in.
So as you can hear, this was a concern of Rod and a dilemma. As a matter of fact, he states he wrote this particular episode because it was timely. It was timely, it was speaking to the day, and speaking to the political state of things.
Well, that was the problem. I can't answer it. I don't know what is the ethical rightness and justice of this. I haven't figured it out yet.
Well, if Rod doesn't have it all figured out, I don't feel so bad that I don't have it all figured out either. This is what I love about this program. Yeah, it gives you thrills and it gives you chills and it might make you laugh at times, and I think unnerve and scare you at other times. But the one thing I could consistently look forward to with regard to the Twilight Zone is that it made you think. Every now and again, you would get that episode flung in your face that you were challenged with. And maybe by the episode's end, you might have an answer. But then again, like this, you might not have an answer. It might take some additional consideration, or you might just have to be in the moment and the answer comes to you then. All right, my people, it was great spending this time with you. I so appreciate all of you. Until next time.